So I am sitting here in my office at Remax Kelowna, and I'm chatting it up with Julie Pringle. Julie is the owner and lead photographer for Snap Commercial Photography, and she specializes in real estate photography. But she's also done some outstanding portraits for us. Julie is a wonderful person. She's so much fun to be around, and I would say a very extroverted person. I love hiring her for all my photography jobs because she's got a real knack for helping the homeowner, let's say, make some adjustments. I mean, she has a way of making a person feel great and putting them at ease, and then maybe getting them to pick up some clutter or move things around a bit, such a way that they can put their home in the best possible light, but without getting defensive about it. And Julie's photos always come out fantastic. First of all, Julie, thank you for coming on the show today. I know you're an extremely busy person, and I really appreciate your time. So I wanted to give you a platform to tell us about your work and about your fascinating life. So, Julie, why don't you fill in some of the gaps that I've left out? Tell us about yourself, where you're from, how long you've been a professional photographer.
My pleasure. We moved here from Winnipeg, actually, almost, I guess it's 8 years now. Right. Myself, my husband, and my now 14-year-old daughter, Sam, and son, who is 10, Griffin. And we love it. Winnipeg is a great place to be from.
Right.
And we just love it. We felt like we were vacationing the first 5 years that we lived here, especially with buying a boat. Being on the water is key. And when I moved here, it was actually in pharmaceutical sales that brought me here, and I transferred within the same company. Oh. And then 5 years later got laid off, and which happens in that industry. They were downsizing. And so I thought, oh, this is going to be a positive thing. I could actually not have a boss. I'm going to one day just work for myself. And that did not work out the way I had thought it was going to, because now I have, 250 bosses that I answer to every day. And becoming an entrepreneur was something that I did not give enough weight to when I was considering it. Just the hours and being, a jack of all trades and trying to keep everybody happy. And so there was a bit of an anxiety component with trying to figure that out. But I'm in my third year now of running my own company, and it's been great. I've got 3 staff to help me out, and you really just work out a lot of kinks on the go. And you have to be fairly daring if you want to keep growing. So because we deal with a lot of technology, you're always needing to be on the cusp of what's the latest and greatest and the newest and competing. But other than that, I absolutely love it. And I don't have any regrets. It's been fantastic.
Tell us when you first knew that you were going to be a professional photographer.
Well, I've always enjoyed photography. I always had a camera in my hand. I was always the one people said, you take the picture, you take good pictures. But I never had a clue that I was going to end up doing this as a career, because I love watching that show Bridezillas. So I knew right away I didn't want to do any weddings. Right. And family portraits are fun, but I have no desire chasing around pets and other toddlers. It was tough enough to handle my own toddlers at times for portraits. And so just the idea of doing portraits stressed me right out. I helped out a family member who was doing this for a while and got a knack for it. And I loved the different components. I loved being in my car and going to different people's homes and meeting different people, and yet having a really professional kind of outline with my day on helping realtors and other developers up their game with professional photography and virtual tours. And then I also like that piece of sitting down at my computer and editing photos hours on end. Real estate's very different than portraits, so it just kind of gave me a real opportunity to do different things, but hone in on maybe the top 3 or 4 things that I felt like I was good at. So I didn't have a plan. It just kind of, I think that happens in many facets of my life where I don't have a plan, but it ended up being fantastic because I was willing to take some risks, because it's not mapped out for you. You could do a business plan and that changes every 3 months.
I should probably share this story. So when I left, I was working for a different real estate company. They had a photographer that you had to use. But he wouldn't work with me once I left the company. And he was like 3-4 weeks in advance anyways. So I was hanging out at a place it used to be called Wine and Art on Lawrence Avenue. And the former owner, her husband, was a photographer. Did it mostly for fun. He was in the oil and gas industry, so he was in Alberta all the time. But when he was here, he would do it, and he did quite a good job. But there was a listing I got, and I asked him, and he said he's away for 2.5 weeks. And that day, coincidentally, you messaged me on Facebook, and you said, you're in a new photography business, and do I need any help? And I said, yeah.
I remember that.
Right? I got a new listing, and you're going to save my life here because the client's jumping up and down. And that was it. And the rest is history. I think that was 3 years ago.
Yeah.
But I've used you ever since, I think.
Yeah, you were one of my first clients. I think that, people who know me know I'm a little bit extroverted. And I have no problem, reaching out and cold calling people. I mean, referrals are always great. That's huge in the city of Kelowna. And, one thing that I always remember is being a teenager, and my dad was in sales and marketing. He worked at Coca-Cola for years. And he said, listen, in sales and marketing, it's always about relationships and business and who you know. And when you're ready to have a summer job, there's people we can talk to make sure that, you get a good job that you like, that pays decent and what have you. And I thought, it's not who you know, it's all on my skills. You don't know what you're talking about. But it turns out it so is who you know. The referral business that I have got has been profound. I can't get over the incestuous idea of real estate in Kelowna. I mean, there's over 1,000 realtors here, and I don't expect to have all of them as clients. It'd be great if that was the case, but I just can't get over that if you make a good impression on a handful of people, that will come around, and people are more than willing to refer you on. So I've grown from 12 clients, with you being one of the first, to a few hundred, and it's been fantastic.
That's actually an inspirational story, because it was the same for me in real estate sales. Yeah. It was very slow going at the start, but referrals and word of mouth, and you do a good job for the first handful of clients, and that's going to spread very naturally. So, a personal story. Can you tell us something about your past that if someone were to hear it today, someone who just met you, they'd be a little bit surprised? Transformation, or how you're a different person today than you were?
I'm probably comfortable sharing a lot more than I should for this radio call, but, I guess some people in certain environments only know you to be a certain way. Right. And so what I'm like in someone's home, taking pictures of their photos, and you're extra sweet, and you're trying to be accommodating, and you're trying to assure them that there's no stress involved, and you want to alleviate that for them. And then what I'm like when you and I meet for, a drink at the end of the day. Right. So you can be very different. But it's funny, I don't know if it's a matter of reflection, and I never really gave a lot of weight to it, but my husband, Rob, who's quite introverted, says, I don't know how you do it. You are the exact same through all of your professional dealings and work as you are in your personal life. And he said, that's exhausting to me. But it depends on who you are as a person. I'm an extroverted person. I get my energy from other people, whereas he wants to come home after the end of a long day at work and, hang out with his family and kind of recharge. Right. And I'm not like that whatsoever. But one thing I guess people don't really know about me is I do like my moments of solitude to think, because that face people give a bad name for when you're thinking hard and you don't look overly friendly and approachable. Right. I almost feel like I need to hide out so that I can think, so that I don't look unapproachable. Because typically I always have a smile on my face, gums and teeth are showing, and I don't think people know that about me. I think everybody sees me going 120 miles an hour, which happens, 90% of the time, but I do need some downtime. And I always get told, oh, you're so confident and, you're extroverted. You don't care what people think. That's not the case. I worry a ton. I'm always nervous when someone leaves me a message and they don't tell me why they're calling. And they say, if you were to phone me and say, hey, Jewel, it's Luke, give me a call. Right. I'd think, oh, God, what does he want? And why didn't he just tell me? And is there a problem? Did they not like photos? Or did I mess something up and not put it in my calendar? So I can be an overthinker, but you only tend to show people what you want them to see. Right. So I don't know if everybody knows that a bit about me, but.
Yeah, I can't stand that. When people leave a message, they don't say why. It's like, why are you calling me? But I'm curious, have you changed? I mean, were you the exact same person when you were 18? Like, if I could go in a time machine and meet you back then, would I be surprised or?
Well, it's funny. Every boss I've ever had said that when she's on, she's on. And when she's off, you better wrangle her in. And usually it's because I've lost interest. If I'm lacking enthusiasm for the project, or I've lost interest in something, or this isn't going to be exciting, I tend not to be 100% focused. And so, I remember my grade 8 principal at school saying, Julie needs to study in a big white room because she gets too distracted by things that are shiny and whatever. I'm sure ADHD was just as prominent back then for me as it was now, versus other children in the world today. But I think I've changed because as we get older, we consider more things. We take a little bit longer to make decisions, and you try to be less selfish and, consider all your options. So if I make this decision, how is this going to affect my life, my kids, my everyday? Right. Whereas in my 20s, I'd just be like, whatever, let's just make this decision and we'll just go forward without any, it probably wouldn't have affected me differently. That hasn't changed. But I think I consider more how it affects other people. What will they think? What will they say? What kind of legacy will that leave me if I don't consider all things? So maybe that just happens when you're 45. You become a bit more of a well-rounded person and you're more considerate of these worldly things.
Your career as a photographer, was it all smooth sailing? Like, did your business expand in a straight line and everything is smooth and perfect and easygoing, or did you have any setbacks?
Well, I think in small business, the biggest challenge is cash flow. And so when you start out in photography, there's a ton of equipment that you need. There's a ton of insurance, liability insurance that you have to be covered. When you're going in, when you're having people in, your studio or your home and you're taking photos, you need insurance. What if they slip on the walkway when they're coming to have their photos done? What if you're on a construction site and you're climbing on a deck that doesn't have a railing and you fall off? The developer doesn't want to be responsible for that. So there's a ton of check boxes that you had to make sure were ticked off before you could even start. And then the whole process of making sure your clients are satisfied and everybody liking things done in a certain way, that's something that you deal with every day. But when you hire someone new and you're sharing a camera for a couple different shoots and I haven't, fixed the settings before she goes out and 2 hours of work is blurry or the white balance is off and it just the photos need to be redone on a $3 million home that's going live the next day on the market, that is a setback. You have some serious crawling back to do when that happens. It's happened 2 or 3 times for one reason or another. It's not always smooth, but the growth, I can proudly say the trajectory of my growth has been significant over the past 3 years. Mm-hmm. But I think it's just because I've tried to create a reputation for myself that means it's more than just shooting a photo. It's the whole package. It's from the booking of the appointment to showing up to doing a good job, and then the follow-up is key, but also being keenly aware of what can I do to help you up your game and continually try to be excited so that you're engaged and we have a mutually beneficial working relationship. So that's key.
That's one of the things I love about working with you is the clients, the homeowners say, Julie was fantastic and the photos are fantastic. So you're a very likable person, very professional, and the work is top quality too. I mean, I've dealt with people in the past where the work is pretty good, but they're just kind of jerks. I don't really want to, you know what I mean? So you've got the whole package, and homeowners really appreciate that. It makes me look better, it makes the listing look better, and it's really great. So you work with realtors, but in a sense, you also work with homeowners, and you interact with homeowners quite a bit. Tell us a little bit about your work with realtors and homeowners. What makes it fun for you, and what makes it challenging or sometimes frustrating?
Well, I think the big thing is, we can't tell the future and we don't have a crystal ball. And I think the most profound way of being, one way, I guess, that I find to be profound of being successful is picturing your world. What do you need? So people want realtors to get back to them quickly. They want it to be efficient. They don't want to have a lot of balls in the air at the same time. It's a stressful time. And so I'm trying to think of, how is this going to make your life easier? So sending you pictures, is it okay if I send it in Google Drive or Dropbox? But when you're dealing with homeowners in their home, you're going into their personal space, and there's a very fine line between, oh, your home is wonderful, and just pumping their tires when you could make it and tweak a few things to make it look a little bit better in photos. So there's a tactful way of getting them to take the big lace doily off of their dining room table to show off this beautiful wood custom-built table, and doing it in a way that they won't be offended. And, it's what I find really intriguing is when you're in someone's house, and you do this every day, you're getting a real sense of what their life is like. Family pictures on the wall, or trophies that they've had, and degrees in frames, and how tidy they might be, and how tidy they may not be, because we've all had those tenant-lived homes that are crack dens, You got to be a jack of all trades, and you need to be flexible and very non-judgmental and accepting. And I find that just the more open and transparent I am, things seem to just work out for me. Some people probably find that a little weird because I can be a little bit too transparent, but yeah, I think that that speaks to how diverse we need to be in situations that are constantly changing, and you never know what you're walking into for many, many shoots. So I love dealing with, and when they ask me for my card and I get an email or a text after the shoot and they say, wow, I don't even think I want to move anymore. These pictures look so great. That's the biggest compliment, Yeah. They've also never cleaned their house this much and decluttered as much as they have, but I try to set them up for success by giving you a checklist to forward on to them and how to prepare.
I'm sure occasionally it's frustrating dealing with a realtor like myself or some homeowners. Like without giving away personal information, what can be frustrating for you in this process? So the realtors listening to the show will know not to do that.
Well, I think you do the very best you can with what you have. The most simple scenario is the homeowner who doesn't live there, and there's tenants, and the tenant doesn't want to move, and they just don't care. They don't care if the house is even clean or anything. And they can be quite critical, we'll make sure everything's put away and the lights are shut off and don't let my cat out. And, what I find to be most challenging is when I've set aside an hour to 2 hours, depending on the size of the house. I will get texts from realtors, need a shoot on Wednesday. That's it. Yeah. And I have to check back, and I got to get clarification to set us up both for success. How big approximately is the house? Does this look like a show home, or are there going to be people there helping me move boxes, things like that? Like, dirt doesn't show. clutter shows. And so I've been in situations where I'm at the house for 3 hours. I've only budgeted an hour and a half, but I'm shuffling boxes, just sweating like crazy, moving things around, trying to get the right angles and so forth. And you do the best with what you have, but sometimes the biggest challenge is just making sure you slot the right amount of time. And I think it's, again, communication is key. And I can't be afraid to ask you for more communication and clarity about what I'm walking into. And I think it's just setting up expectations. Same with the follow-up. I mean, that's why I'm able to get photos to people in 24 hours, because I'm trying to make sure that you have a good sense of, when do you want this deal to go live? And I need to have my timetable in check to do that. So far, it's been pretty good. I've just learned to ask the right questions.
And you're very assertive too. So when I'm dealing with you, I'm pretty clear what's expected of me and what's expected of the homeowners. So yeah, and I agree. When you're dealing with a tenant who really doesn't want to leave, they're almost, maybe subconsciously, maybe not, trying to sabotage it. Yeah. Like they hope it looks messy because they don't want to leave.
That's right.
So yeah, I know that can be challenging for sure. Tell us a little bit more about what makes you unique, because almost like realtors, there's a ton of photographers in Kelowna.
When I first put together my business plan, the guy in front of me who was lending me money said, I really hope you don't plan on being a wedding photographer because that is saturated. Thankfully, I wasn't. One-stop shop. Mm-hmm. That's key, So I'm taking the photos. I'm helping prep the area. I'm not too fussy about whether or not I have to move things as long as I have permission to do it. I have the ability to do aerial video. I have the ability to do the 360-degree panoramas. We have now just begun doing people's social media posts for their listings for them in all social media channels. So whether it be YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, those types of things. We're offering that. That's not something, I don't plan on getting into the business of doing websites and all that kind of stuff, but it's an easy thing for me to offer to realtors because there's so many of them who don't have assistants, and there's so many people who don't want a team, and those are the ones who just seem to have very, very little time on their hands to do those things. Fact is you have to be on social media, because if you're not occupying space there, somebody else is. But a lot of people just don't want to be there because it's a time suck on a personal level. So I think one-stop shop is key. The follow-up is key. And I'd like my clients to be my friends on some level. I like the opportunity to work with people who are like-minded. That's just an easy segue. And I don't want the people who, I do my own aerial video and they don't have a license to do it. There's a lot of people who will try to do that. I like my guy, Carrie, who has a permit, and I don't have to worry. We've got all the insurance pieces covered. I like to work with realtors who are flexible and they try their best to give me notice. I think it's just a mutual respect. I'm very much a proponent of under promise and over deliver. And I think as long as you ask the right questions and you have us set up for success for both of us, it'll be a fantastic relationship. I go out of my way to make sure that people are happy and giving me glowing reviews. Because if they're not, then I know I really need to work on something. But I have high expectations for myself and my staff. And I'm not so laid back and extroverted with them. I'm sure they wish I was a little more laid back.
What is one piece of advice that you would give to someone brand new, just starting out in the same business? Would you advise them just stay away? Or what would you say to a young person who says, I think I want to be a photographer in Kelowna?
I've coached a couple of people, one in Kamloops and one here, who sought me out. And I guess if I was the type of person who didn't ask for advice and ask for opinions, I might think differently, but I truly believe that you have to surround yourself with people who are better than you. It's not the first time you've heard this. I mean, there's other people who have that same theory and that same way of going through life. I like to tap into the knowledge of people who are like-minded and who I've seen become successful. And it's inspiring, and I think it makes you a little bit more approachable as a person. I love collaborating with people. I love that. Great things come from strong moments of collaboration. And so if people are even considering real estate photography and people say, oh, there's a ton of them out there, there's varying degrees of what good looks like. And everybody has their opinion of things. And when I've talked to people who have, this photographer doing work for them, I say, are you happy with what they've done? Are you happy with their work? Oh, yeah, they're great. They give me great service. I don't get this particular thing, or they don't have drone, or they don't do video, but they're great. I just think that's awesome. I think there's room for everybody. I mean, look at your world. There's over 1,000 photographers, or 1,000 realtors in the Okanagan. We've all got our own little networks, because everybody can honestly say they know a realtor, right? But you build a relationship one by one. You look for those referrals one by one. And I wouldn't hesitate to give people tips and advice. I'm the first person to refer portrait requests to a friend, Jen. If I can't help you, I know someone who will. And at least I'm the person who's helping problem solve for them that way. Right. I hired an editor who, I think she edits my photos better than I could ever do that. And she's just such a collaborator. She's always saying, hey, I read this, and what do you think about this white balance tip? And, you just can't be in a position where you're always feeling threatened, because then you come off as defensive and no one wants to be around you. So I that's just my motto, but everybody's different. I think there's always room for people. Some fall off, they're fly-by-night people, and they, fall off the radar. But, that happens to everybody. Right. And then you can be there to pick up the pieces.
Yeah. I would summarize your advice to a new person. If they emulated you, you have a really nice balance of being assertive, going after what you want, being very confident, not afraid to cold call and things like that. But you also have a certain humbleness about you where you're not afraid to collaborate or ask for advice. And like you said, surround yourself with people who understand something even better. And hiring the editors is interesting. I always say, learn as much as you can about everything, because if you do need to hire someone, you'll know what you're doing as far as hiring someone. Yeah. Like, you can recognize if someone's work is crap or if it's good or if it's average because you've done it yourself. Even if they're better at that task than you are, you know enough about it that you can make that decision to hire that person. Yeah. So that's really cool. I'm going to put you on the spot now. Uh-oh. I'd like you to name someone in Kelowna who you think is a fascinating person and who you would like to see come on this show in the future.
That's a long list. There's some pretty fascinating people here. And having been in referral groups like BNI and OBRG in Kelowna, which I think is a massive stepping stone to getting referrals and figuring out your way around this city, the Okanagan in general, that's key. And so I met a ton of entrepreneurs in those business groups. One in particular, Cindy Finnegan, she owns Cakery Arts. She makes the most mouth-watering cookies and cakes that I've ever had. And she made my husband this beer stein with frothing beer out of a cake. And some cakes look good, and then you get them and then they're dry and what have you. But this cake was so unbelievable. So you can get your everyday Tuesday night, I want a sweet tooth cake or cupcakes, but you can have it for, any event. And I call her up. She's great. I just say, I give her an idea of what I'm looking for, and she hand molded peanuts and pretzels out of fondant all around this cake to just add to this beer stein, which, you saw at our party when she did that. It was a Hawaiian themed party, and she put sand out of graham crackers and made flip-flops that she'd molded. And she is an extremely unique person. Her kids have grown up. She didn't start her business until she was well into her 40s, and she's a huge success. You can see her car ripping around going Mach 10 down Highway 97 any time of the week.
Yeah.
It's all deckled out, and I'd love to see her on this show. That would be fantastic. Everyone's got something that they haven't shared that you just don't know about.
Thank you very much. That's great. So you do real estate photography, obviously, and you do commercial photography as well. So if someone's got a new showroom or a studio, you'll do that. You don't do weddings.
No.
And family portraits, I would say it's on a case-by-case basis. Not something you really want to do, especially dealing with, pets and people running all over the place and stuff like that. So it's mainly real estate and commercial. So if someone is interested in talking to you about your services or finding out more about what you do and seeing some of your work, where is a website they can go to or your phone number? What's the best way for someone to get in touch with you?
They can view some work at snapcommercialphotography.com. Simple enough. They can call or text me on my cell phone, 250-469-4502. I love chatting with people. My biggest pet peeve is the email. Can you send me your pricing? It just doesn't give you a sense of everything that we do. The property mapping camera system that I have that will create floor plans and give measurements with under a 1%, margin for error. It just doesn't come through on a long-winded email. Everybody scrolls right to the bottom for the number, which is what I do. So Why would I read all the finite details? I think having a conversation and just calling is better. I know that's not in many people's comfort zones anymore. We screen our calls and we go by text. But it is the best way to try to reach and talk to me because every single property is different. I don't go in there with a cookie cutter frame of mind. It's always different. And I think if you're interested in any kind of documentation of a building, whether it be for your website or for clients who are selling a home, then I'm your girl because I've got all the equipment and tools to do that. So sometimes it's a developer trying to showcase their work. Sometimes it's a contractor, a handyman, somebody who builds things with their hands and they want to showcase their work. Social media is the way to do it. That's all imagery, right, and videos. And so the most effective way to do that is, through photography. And iPhones just don't seem to cut it when you're taking real estate photos. Yeah. So it really helps people. It steps up your game. I think people would be surprised at how inexpensive it is. People think professional photographers cost a ton of money. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to be the case to get across the image that you had wanted to portray. Yeah. So, there's always things to talk about and customize it to their needs.
That's great. Thank you very much, Julie. I feel like I've learned something today, and we all got to know you a little bit better on a personal level. So I wish you all the best and hope to see you again real soon.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thanks for having me. It's very flattering. I totally appreciate you asking. I think this is a great program. Good luck.